This is lesson 1 of the proportional reasoning unit. We're studying ratios today. So first let's talk about what a ratio is. A ratio is simply when you compare two or more numbers. So it's a comparison of two or more numbers. And usually when we compare the two numbers, we use a colon. So usually written, if our two numbers are A and B, it'd be written like this. But there are other ways to express ratios, which we will see in this lesson. Okay, let's practice a little bit. Let's say we want to look at the ratio of students who walk to school versus the students who don't walk to school. So you might want to poll your class for this. I'm just going to use an example. So let's say there's 30 students in the class. Let's say 10 of them walk to school and 20 of them don't. Okay. Ratios can be reduced. So if both numbers can be divided by the same value, then we can reduce the ratio just like you would in a fraction. So 10 and 20 can both be divided by 10. So we can reduce this. Now it's important to know that you can only reduce by dividing. You cannot reduce by subtracting. And so 10 divided by 10 is 1, and 20 divided by 10 is 2. So for every student that walks, 2 students don't walk. Okay, let's do students who have a dog, 2 students who have a cat, 2 students who don't have any pets at all. So this is going to be a 3-part ratio, and you could poll your class. I'm just going to make up an example here. Let's say we have 30 students again. Let's say 12 students have a dog. Let's say 7 students have a cat, and let's say there are 11 students who don't have any pets at all. This cannot be reduced because there is no number that divides evenly into 12, 7, and 11. And this is a 3-part ratio because we're comparing 3 numbers. Okay, next one. Students whose favorite subject is art to total students. So let's say 6 students in our class, favorite subject is art, and there are 30 students in the class. We can reduce this one. Divide by 6. So you get 1 to 5. Okay. And then finally, students whose favorite subject is math is total students. Again, I'm just using an example. If you were doing this in a real classroom, you might poll the students to see. You can reduce this one, divide by 2. And you would get 4 to 15. Okay. The first 2 examples, these 2 here, these are called part-to-part ratios, because you're comparing only parts of the whole. You're not comparing to the total number of students. And the second 2 examples here, where we are comparing to the total number of students, these are called part-to-whole ratios. Because you're comparing to the total. These ones can be written in different ways. So we can write part-to-whole ratios as fractions, decimals, and percents, and the whole number would go in the denominator. So let's just use our art students as an example. People who love art to the total, we said that was 1 to 5. Okay, so to write it as a fraction, you just simply turn it into a fraction. So you write the 1 on top and then the 5 on the bottom. So 1 out of every 5 students has art as their favorite subject. To write it as a decimal, you would divide those 2 numbers. So you would go 1 divided by 5, and you get 0.2. So and then a percent, and these numbers are all equivalent. They're just different ways of representing numbers. Percents, what you do is you either make your fraction out of 100, or what you can do with your decimal is you can multiply that by 100, because percents are out of 100, so it'd be 20%. So 20% of our students have art as their favorite subject. This one is useful because this is one you would often see reported in different studies and things like that. You'd also often see the fraction one. The decimal one is not as common for this. Okay, let's do a practical example here. Let's say we worked at a juice shop and the juice shop makes smoothies according to this ratio. So the 6 is going to represent the fruit, the 3 is going to represent the yogurt, and the 1 is going to represent ice. You often use ratios when you're mixing things together because you want to keep the ratios consistent so it tastes the same every time, even if you make more or less. Okay, so let's answer the questions. It says, what is the ratio of fruit? So I'm just going to use my highlighters here. Fruit is the 6th one to yogurt in lowest terms. And you could pause the video here and try these on your own and come back and check your answers if you want. It could be a useful thing to do. Okay, so we can reduce this by dividing by 3. And so our final answer would be 2 to 1. Okay, let's try the next one. Fruit to total ingredients. Now this one's a little tricky because I didn't tell you what the number is for total ingredients, but what we can do for the total is just add up those numbers we see there in the original ratio, 6 plus 3 plus 1. So in total there would be 10 parts. So when I'm comparing fruit, which is the yellow number, to the total, it would be 6 to 10. And we can reduce that by dividing by 2. And it would be 3 to 5. I'm just going to box in my answers here. Make it nice and neat. Okay. And finally, the shop claims that their smoothies are more than 50% fruit. Are they correct? So let's use our fruit ratio we just came up with in part B, and let's change it into a percentage to see if it's above 50%. So written as a fraction, this would be 3 out of 5. Now there's a couple ways to change it to a percent. We could change it to a decimal first and then multiply by 100. Alternatively here, we can make an equivalent fraction that is out of 100. So if we want to make this out of 100, we would want to multiply by 20. And we would get 60 out of 100. So this is 60% fruit. So the smoothies are 60% fruit. So yes, they are correct. In fact, they're 60% fruit. The smoothies are 60% fruit. Okay, last one. On average, the shop sells 60 smoothies a day, each weighing 250 grams. How many grams of yogurt will they need? This is a practical example. You might actually want to know this if you're working at the shop so you know how much yogurt to order, right? So let's figure out the total weight first of all the smoothies altogether. So we know we have 60 smoothies per day. Oops, I spelled it wrong. Smoothies, there we go. And they each weigh 250 grams. 60 times 250 is 15,000. So we know we have 15,000 grams of smoothie. And in the original ratio of the ingredients, it was 6 to 3 to 1. And the total was 10. I'll write the total here. So if I want to convert this so that the total is 15,000, all I would want to do is just multiply every single term by 1,500. So multiply the 6 by 1,500, and I'll get an equivalent ratio where the total is 15,000, which is what I'm looking for. So every single term by 1,500. So I would get 9,000. That's how many grams of fruit I would need. To 4,500. That's how much yogurt I'm going to need. And then 1,500 grams. That's how much ice I'm going to need. And then in total, my smoothie amount is going to be 15,000. So this is how much fruit puree, this is how much yogurt, this is the amount of ice, and this is the total. So you can multiply or divide any ratio. If you do it by the same number for every single term, you get an equivalent ratio. And then the answer I'm looking for here is how much yogurt to order. So it would be 4 1,500 grams, or 4.5 kilograms if you want to divide it by 1,000. It's a more reasonable unit of yogurt. All right, and that is the end of the lesson.